The last 5 minutes was outstanding because the judge essentially conceded that the statute of limitations that we won at the Court of Appeals is in effect. Therefore, about 80% of the case is over. I was going to come out and say that, as you know, we're not entitled to a jury, which is pretty unusual in the United States of America. So we think it's very unfair that I don't have a jury, but the judge's last statement was very fair.
All right, you're looking live at Trump Tower, where the former president will soon head back to court. You just heard him from yesterday, after declaring day one of the civil fraud trial a good one for his defense. Is he right? Retired NYPD inspector and attorney himself, Paul Morrow, here. So you heard what the president was saying. He heard what the judge said. All the charges prior to 2011, the statute of limitations is out, so 80% of the case is done. Is he right?
It's not entirely accurate. So what happened here is that the judge acknowledged the fact that there is an appeals court decision that would cut against the Tish James side of things here. He hasn't decided that yet. So Trump went a little further than the judge actually did. What's interesting to me, however, is that the Trump side of the Trump team had to sue to get Judge Engoron to acknowledge the appeals court decision. I don't know why it took such a drastic motion to get the sitting judge in the case to acknowledge controlling precedent, which is the appeals court. If the judge, in fact, does follow what appear to be his statements that he made at the end of the day yesterday, then Trump is right. A number of these a number of these charges, rather, they're civil, would go away.
Every time I hear this case, I get more confused. Why do you have to sue to get a judge to pay attention to the statute of limitations? And if that is, in fact, the case that he admitted yesterday, it's out of his hands.
That's right.
So what other decision could he possibly make?
That's right. And remember something else. Ivanka's, the case against Ivanka here, the civil allegations against Ivanka have already been dropped. So they have made up some ground. Look, let's just draw back a little bit and look at this from a macro sense. This is about just driving him out of New York and cutting out his funding so that he can't run. Tish James came into office. She ran on this.
We could roll the tape if we want.
Exactly. And so there have been, she did a similar thing against the NRA. They went back at her and said this is selective enforcement. Now, they lost. But essentially, let's ask ourselves this. Were his name not Trump, is this case going on? Have you heard of a similar case where
Never.
It comes down to the value? They're arguing over what we would call in the real estate agency world comps. Right? Anybody who sold a house knows they look in the neighborhood, they see what the houses are worth, and they say, okay, we're going to evaluate your property based on that. How in the world, in this case, they could be off hundreds of millions of dollars based on comps? You got to ask yourself what's going on.
So they want to marginalize his accounting firm, too, and get it separate from the CFO.
That's right.
They're trying to say, well, I was just going on the word of the CFO, and the CFO was looking at the numbers. An accounting firm is responsible when they sign on to something, correct?
That's right. And look at what they did even relative to the golf course that he leased from the city. As you and I were discussing, they wanted him to buy that. Instead, he leased it.
Bloomberg begged him to buy the Bronx golf course.
And I'm here, my whole life. I remember when they begged him to take over the Woolman rink. They couldn't fix the rink.
1980s.
And he had to come in and do it. He did it in like no time compared to the city, which could never get it
Why
done.
does this take 3 months? Why do they say this case is going to take 3 months, and when the judge has already decided on a portion of it already, erroneously?
You touched on it. First of all, it's complicated. There are a number of... He's only really decided on the one count, okay, which is the first count that he decided on. There's 5 more that are pending. Furthermore, then you're into the damages portion of this whole thing. The Trump people want to put on all kinds of experts to address some of the things that you and I are talking about now. This is reportedly going to go until December. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes into the new year. Then there's going to be appeals, et cetera, et cetera. Look, let's cut right to it again. This is all about 5 November of next year. They want to get him out of the mix before then. He doesn't want to.
They deny that.
Yeah. Okay.
They're just getting to the bottom of a fraud case.
Right.
Because there's no other crime in New York. It's only Donald Trump saying he's worth too much.
Remember something else. The Manhattan DA's office, no friend of Donald Trump, walked away from this case when they looked at it criminally. And then Tish James brought it civilly. Why? It's a lower standard. Right. It's preponderance of the evidence. That's civil court. That's only a 51% standard. You don't have to hit that high bar of beyond a reasonable doubt. For her, this looked like a ground ball.
That's easily turned into a double play.
That's right.
But it's not. We'll see where this goes. We know this. The judge looks like a really silly guy. when he took off his glasses and had that dumb smile on his face, adjusting his hair. Unbelievable with all this at stake. All right. Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate it.